We live in a completely unjust food system. The most important study that's been done on nutrition ever is the China study by Dr. Campbell and his researchers. Premier Deng in China died of cancer of the bladder. Before he died, he set aside money to do a study of nutrition in China and disease relation. So this was independently funded. Campbell ran that team, and the result of it is the China study. The first thing is that the results were so radical that the food pyramid was changed to be more scientific. But because meat and dairy were completely minimized in the diet, the meat and dairy industry in the United States lobbied so hard that they actually changed the pyramid, which means science is no longer serving humanity, it's serving corporate interests. That's what it means. Science is serving corporate interests. That is wrong. In the China study, what they found is that in areas where their protein was less than 5% from meat and dairy, there was no cancer. There was no cancer.
Meat and chicken, maybe once a week maybe maximum. And then vegetable, hummus, all good Arabic food, Middle East, like in the old time, like in the Muslim. Look at the Muslim. Bread, almond, apple, go read. Read. You discover in the Muslim lots of good things. Very smart Prophet Muhammad. He knew what's good for the future about the body.
Some things about meat and dairy consumption. First of all, the meat and dairy today is not the meat and dairy that Grandma and Grandpa ate. The meat that Grandma and Grandpa ate were free range, what they would call now organic. They didn't have a word for it because everything was organic 50 years ago. Organic, free range, happily raised animals on farms where they actually treated animals with some dignity. Farmers actually had relationships with their animals. They treated them with dignity. Now, and my grandfather had a cattle ranch, so I actually spent my summers on a cattle ranch, and I herded cattle, and I saw. My grandfather, the first time I got on a horse, before I got on the horse, he put a pencil in my mouth and yanked it back really hard. And he said, that's what the horse feels when you're using that bit, so don't forget it. That was my first lesson, because that's the way people taught. They had respect for their animals. Our religion gives animals rights. Ants have rights. In the book of Zuhd, one of the Sahaba used to go out and put breadcrumbs on the anthill that was near his house, and one of the tabi'een asked him what he was doing. He said, I don't want them testifying against me on Yawm al-Qiyamah that I didn't fulfill the rights of the neighbor. I mean, this is an anthill. What kind of psychology did these people have? It's a different world they were living in. Dr. Nasser was alluding to it last night. They lived in a different world. The Prophet spoke to animals. He spoke to animals. Our Prophet spoke to animals. He spoke to them, and they spoke back to him. This is not mythology. This is reality. They're sentient creatures. They have nervous systems. They feel pain. They become depressed. In America, we have dogs and cats on Prozac. This is a fact. Veterinarians prescribe Prozac for dogs in America. Don't think the dog is depressed because he's a dog. He's happy to be a dog. He's depressed because he's in a house that's depressing. The dog whisperer said, he doesn't go solve people's dog problems. He goes and solves dogs' people problems. And the same is true for the horse whisperer, Buck. The horse whisperer said, I don't solve people's horse problems. I solve horses' people problems. Animals are intuitive. They know when something's wrong. Sayyidina Umar, during his Khalifa, prohibited eating meat every day. This is a fact.
In Islam, you can be a vegetarian, you can be a vegan. There's nothing that forces you to eat meat in order to be a Muslim. So there's nothing wrong with it. However, there is a lot of sacrifice in the religion of Islam within the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, obviously the sacrifice of Ibrahim ﷺ, and sacrifice that is done to benefit the poor and to also be a means of bringing ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, this does not force you to eat meat or to necessarily engage in it, but at the same time, not necessarily to ascribe any immorality to the idea of sacrifice and to the idea of the distribution of meat and the eating of meat that was raised humanely, sacrificed humanely, and then of course used to nurture people. So by all means, eat your greens and stay healthy, inshallah ta'ala, and don't worry about it.
Don't think vegetarianism is not from Islam. People say that when they become Muslim and they're vegetarian, they say, oh, you have to stop eating meat. I mean, you have to start eating meat. Your Iman's not complete until you eat meat. That's what they say. And then they give them the biryani and welcome to Islam. Ibn Abi Laham, one of the Sahaba, Ibn Abi Laham, was a vegetarian. Kana nabatiyan. This is in the tradition. And the Prophet accepted that from him. Now, if you swore off meat for ibadah, that's a different thing. The Prophet told them not to do that. But he didn't want to eat meat. Maybe he didn't like it. But today, eating a lot of meat is unethical. I would say that eating fish, this is your choice, and I'm not dictating to anybody. You have to make your own choices. You do your research. You know, we're not fascists. Think for yourselves. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to make you think about things, and you go back and you do your own research and you decide for yourselves, because you're all sovereign human beings, and nobody can tell you what to do other than Allah and His Messenger, and that's it. Nobody can tell you what to do. And every scholar that tells you, he's telling you what he thinks Allah and His Messenger is telling you what to do. That's called ijtihad. So Sayyidina Umar said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَاللَّحَمْ فَإِنَّ لَهُ الضَّرَاوَةَ كَضَرَاوَةِ الْخَمْرِ. It's in the Muwatta. Beware of meat, because it has an addiction like the addiction of wine. Beware of meat. إِيَّاكُمْ وَاللَّحَمْ. Because it has an addiction like the addiction of wine. We have Muslims now eating meat 3 times a day, and then they're wondering why they have gout, why they have all these diseases. Seriously, start cutting that out.